we met 18 months ago. I was really grateful that you let me speak to you then.
Of course.
Since then, you've literally done so much with Beyond Meat.
Thank you.
If you had to pinpoint one kind of like bit of progress that really stands out to you, what would it be?
I think one of the things we really look at as a point of transition in the business is gaining entry into the meat case. And so while that was something that we've been working on for many, many years, it finally happened in 2016, and that propelled us, I think, onto a national stage in terms of the mainstream consumer. And so we went from Whole Foods and into a lot of conventional grocers,
and more recently Target.
Target. But the statistic that I am really excited about is one where when we got into the meat case, we thought, okay, let's get in there. Let's see if we can, represent plant-based meat well. Let's see if we can, not get thrown out, things like that, And in Southern California, in one of the largest conventional retailers in the country, their Southern California district, we are now the number one selling patty in the meat case. So ahead of Angus, ahead of 80/20 beef, ahead of turkey, ahead of chicken patties. That's by unit, not by weight yet. But to have that level of interest in the products in the meat case itself this soon was really exciting.
Are you ahead of targets?
We are. Yeah. But to go from, just trying to be the new kid on the block to all of a sudden having a leadership position in the meat case in terms of patties, that was really a momentous event for us.
Now you've got into the meat aisle, as you said. Have you got exclusivity on that? And if not, are you worried that you've kind of done the hard work and then your competition will, for example, follow? Is that something in your mind?
I think the category grows as more and more companies make the right levels of investment in building meat from plants. And so to the extent that they're willing to make that investment and develop products that are worthy of being in the meat case, I think that can only help the sector overall. But in terms of how do we deal with competition in general, you're sitting in our answer. Like we overinvest in research and development. We have, as we mentioned, the new research center, Manhattan Beach project, up the street.
Just briefly, what is that?
Sure. So the Manhattan Beach project is an initiative we've had for many years here at Beyond Meat. And it was meant to evoke the climate, the energy, the urgency and sophistication of the Manhattan Project in the Second World War. The idea that you can bring together the very best scientists in the world, you can give them a clear target, and you can properly fund them and then kind of get out of the way, was something I wanted to instill our organization with. And so picking that name was important for that reason. And we have done that. We've gotten the best scientists in the world. So they're literally from all over the world, which I find really interesting. We give them this clear target of 80/20 beef or pork, et cetera, and then say, okay, go build that. And they bring in all the disciplines from medicine to biophysics to whatever you need to answer that calling. And so, if you're trying to copy what we're doing, you're most likely chasing a ghost, because our goal is to make the products that we sell on the shelf obsolete. We always try to make those products obsolete. And so unless someone has inside information, it's very hard for people to keep up with us because we're innovating so quickly and we have such a disregard for our previous product. We just want to make it better each time.
It's interesting you say that, because my next question was going to be, do you think your success is due to you disrupting an industry and your research and what you've done, or do you think it's just a case of you being in that wind and kind of jumping onto the plant-based bandwagon?
Sure. I think it's bigger than us, for sure. I mean, I think the consumer is changing, and we just happen to be very blessed and fortunate to be in the right place at the right time with respect to, are we willing to commit the investment levels? Are we able to attract the best talent? Are we able to hold ourselves accountable to our ultimate goal, which is a perfect build of meat from plants? And so I think maybe where we differ from some organizations is we're just not going to stop until we get there. And our products today aren't good enough. I think they're good, but they're not indistinguishable from animal protein. And we have a firm belief that they can be. And so keep working toward that goal. And to the extent that others have been more willing in the past to say, it's good enough, let's stop. That's not our approach. And so we want all four plates at the dinner table. We don't want just one. And so we want it to be so good that someone has to ask themselves the question, well, why wouldn't I eat this?
Mm-hmm. You've got such a clear goal, right?
Yeah.
Is it easy to become obsessive and single-minded? Like, how's it affected your personal life? I mean, I don't want to get into your personal life, obviously, but in terms of like, do you check your phone in the middle of the night for emails?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's a blessing a joy to be involved in something that does take you to the border of obsession, because that's where you really become alive and productive and very few people have that in their day-to-day work. And so I think it is, I was talking with someone yesterday and they were talking about words like passion and focus and things like that. And if you combine those words and you take them to an extreme, you get to obsession, and so I think it can be healthy if it's channeled in the right directions.
Well, I think we need it, don't we? Because what's happening on the planet is pretty extreme, it's pretty bad. So we need something to counter that, right?
Well, I talk to my children about this. My kids are 12 and 13 now, and particularly my son, he has big aspirations for the type of athlete he wants to be, for example. And my comment to him is always, extraordinary outcomes don't occur without extraordinary input, and so all these kids dream about having these great outcomes athletically, but they forget to put the work in, and you're not going to get an extraordinary outcome without extraordinary effort and extraordinary input, something unusual. And I think we're willing to do the unusual here.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the investment a couple of minutes ago, but what's interesting about your company is it seems to be tied up with like the PR. If you look at who's come on board, Leonardo DiCaprio recently, it's all like a well-oiled machine, it seems, really well-run. Everything, the investment is working with the PR. Thanks. Would you say that's a correct interpretation of it?
Well, I appreciate that perspective on it. I mean, it starts with, are you aligned around that clear and simple goal of building meat from plants and doing it to the point where it's indistinguishable. And if you're kind of true to that and you really stay focused on that and you set individual egos aside and set aside agendas and just like relentlessly focus on that particular goal, you attract really interesting people. And so more than being strategic, I think it's just a process of the company evolving. And we're not going to say no to that, to someone like Leonardo wanting to get involved. And we certainly courted him, but it's to us, it seems very natural. Like, okay, there's a group of people that are trying to solve this problem. Let's bring that group of people together under a brand. And at some point it morphs into a movement, or we morph into that movement.
How many do you think you'll still be taking investment in 3 years? Say?
I'd love to, because it just allows really great people to get behind the brand. The challenge is that we're sort of tapering down that phase of the business. And so, we're probably unlikely to do another private round.
You probably get more investment interest than you can afford in terms of shares.
It's a blessing. Right? I mean, we've had that problem recently, and I can tell you I've been on the other side of that. So
it's a good problem.
It feels pretty good. I've definitely been on the other side of it where you can't raise the money you need. And so I guess over time it evens out.
Does it hurt when people call your products fake meat?
Yeah, it does. It annoys me.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, the phone that you're holding in your hand is not a fake phone. It doesn't look like a landline. It doesn't transmit the information in the same way. But we don't call it a fake phone, right? And so, our meat is not built the same way that meat used to be built, but it serves the same functions, it appears the same way, it satiates the same way. And that's really, if we're doing our job, it will be indistinguishable to the consumer. And so at what point are you willing to let go of the origin of meat and say it has to come from a chicken, cow, or pig, and able to think about meat in terms of composition? Does it have the amino acids? Does it have the lipids? Does it have trace minerals? Does it have water? If it has all those things that are organized in the same structure, why is that not meat? And so, I don't like to use the word fake.
Your mission is to mimic the taste and texture of real meat, right?
Yeah.
So how come you
tweak... Or to build it, rather. To build the real taste and texture.
How come you tweak the cholesterol level? Surely if you wanted to stay true to your mission, you'd keep the cholesterol level the same, everything the same.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, the cholesterol level in our products is 0 because there is no sort of plant-based source of cholesterol that would be useful. But saturated fat, we do put saturated fat in it, but not at the same levels of animal protein, because I think if you're starting from a blank slate, can you optimize everything? Can you put just the right amount of saturated fat in to give the satiating experience, to give the mouthfeel, but not so much that you're going to be, as unhealthy as a piece of 80-20 beef from that perspective. And so we take all that into consideration and spend hours debating and trying to figure out what the exact number is. But yeah, we do keep it lower because I think that most consumers look at plant-based meat and say, okay, this is going to be healthier for me. And if we have saturated fat levels that are more than what's in an 80-20 burger beef or a burger, or slightly less, but not in a meaningful way, I think that betrays their trust.
Mm-hmm. What other products have you got coming out or that are already out?
Right.
Often people associate the Beyond Burger of your company. You're more than that, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah, so we have this sausage that's coming out now. It's rolling out. It'll be in retail stores really soon, but Whole Foods, etc. It's in select restaurants. It's in Veggie Grill. It's in a bunch of really cool sausage establishments. And that's going to be the focus for us this year. Is that sausage? And again, that sausage, I think it's really good, but we already have versions that we're working on that we think will be better.
What other products are in the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our platforms, we have a beef platform, we have a pork platform, and then we have a chicken platform. Chicken we haven't done much with in years because we just feel that if you look at the way the consumer is moving, they're pulling off a red meat at a higher rate, and then they're pulling off a processed meats at a higher rate.
But do you not think they're pulling off the red meat to the chicken?
Yeah,
right?
They could be doing that. But I think people still want they don't want they still want the beef experience. And so that's where we get that consumer. But so we're going to continue to build those platforms, particularly the beef and pork platform, and then iterate off of those. So I can't tell you when, but in the future, you'll see things from us as diverse as bacon or ground beef, et cetera. That's on our pipeline, but the dates mean everything, and I can't tell it.
Do you think the Beyond brand will ever go into, say, leather?
No.
Why not? It fits the brand. It fits what you're trying to do. Why not?
No, it's a great idea. I mean, I think a lot about dairy as well, and these folks and the men and women here would love the opportunity to work on plant-based milk and plant-based dairy products, but I think focus is everything, and if we just stay focused, okay, there's these three species. You got the chicken, the pig, and the cow. Makes up so much of the livestock issue. Let's focus on those. Maybe there'll be some incidental thing along the way that we're like, oh, it's so simple to do this. We'll go ahead and commercialize that. But right now, I think there are a lot of good groups that are working on things like that. For example, I get asked a lot about seafood. And I point out that there's a good group called Good Catch, which is coming out with plant-based seafood products that I think will be pretty good. And so, again, when you're sort of morphing and you're on that borderline between brand and movement, I welcome stuff like that. Okay, I'll focus on this, you guys focus on that, let's go.
Do you work with the other guys in the same field?
I think we're collaborative. I mean, there's some that we're not collaborative with, but that's more... but in general, yes. Yeah.
You don't want to collaborate with everybody?
I think there's a more natural fit for collaboration among ones where you're not directly competitive with. So we're not going to be in seafood. It makes sense for us to be supportive in that regard. But maybe where there's someone that's directly competing for accounts with us, then we would be less. But I think in each case, we're all focused on that, very, very large, animal meat market. And so it doesn't make sense to not kind of give each other a helping hand when we can.
This segues onto just my next question, the topic of animal testing. Is this something you're always going to stay away from?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that something you said from the outset?
Yeah. I mean, I try as hard as I can in the products I buy to avoid that. Like when I get to a hotel, I'll check the shampoo and does it have a little sign on it? I just don't think that's necessary. And I think that the Earth has given us enough material to work with that's understood, that we don't need to genetically modify things. It's an amazing scientific effort to say, okay, with the abundance of plant material on the Earth's surface, what can we go use to directly build meat from plants? And once you start thinking about, and you know this very well, once you start thinking about the plant kingdom as a source of protein, it's an almost infinite amount of feedstocks to use. and I'm amazed every day the ones that I learn about. But that's what's most exciting to me is how do you reorient agriculture away from the statistic of 80% of arable lands being in animal feed or in grazing land. How do you orient it away from that into the direct planting of protein for human consumption? And these are familiar crops, like camelina or pick like lupin or peas or mustard seed or even tobacco leaves have protein in them, and all of those things should be looked at as sources of protein, and I don't think that requires new testing.
Why do you constantly use mention the macronutrient protein? Your products have more than protein.
Protein, I know. I don't know. I guess I'm.
Is it a PR thing? I think it is, right?
Well, I think it's just personal in the sense that I grew up with a focus on protein, like most people do. I mean, am I getting enough protein? And of course, the truth is we all get too much protein here in America, with the exception of those that are malnourished. But yeah, it is only half the game, right? I mean, there's the one of the hardest things about our products and any company that's working on this is the role of fat and the distribution of fat. How do you, the way it's designed in an animal, right? It's interlaid and there's pockets and there's the distribution is uneven and when you're doing that with plant material, it can sometimes come out too homogeneous. And so our game is, how do you make it more varied? How do you develop pockets of fat in the product, things like that. And then there's the flavor. We talked about this before, but there's over 1,000 molecules that make meat taste like meat. How do you drill down to find the ones that are carrying the load, and then find those molecules or analogous molecules in plants and get them into the product? Everything from the sound of the product as it cooks to the aroma that's being emitted, when the flavor changes. Does the flavor change too much in the wrong direction as it gets heated more and more? So if someone really likes their burger at 3 minutes each side, maybe someone else likes it at 2 minutes, maybe someone else likes it at 4.5, is it going to taste consistent throughout that, or are the inputs we're using going to change in a way that's not advantageous to the flavor profile? All these things are complex, and that's what we focus on.
Are you giving up trying to keep up with it?
No, I love it. No,
really? With all the other stuff you got going on in the business, you're trying to keep up with the lab stuff a little bit?
I pretty much like this part of the business and T-shirts. Yeah.
Your products are in over 25,000 stores in the US, right? You've sold 11 million products. Yeah. Are you able to keep up with demand?
Historically, we've had trouble with that. And just like any business, I mean, there's been times when we've overbuilt stock, and that was really in the early days of the business, and did some just hard stuff like hired too many people and things like that, but now we're at a phase where we can't keep up to the extent we want to, and so we're really developing more and more manufacturing capacity. So we just went from a much smaller facility in Missouri where we produce all the protein to 80,000 square feet, to have really enough room to continue to grow. We keep bringing on new production partners, whether in Texas, here in California, looking elsewhere, Georgia, et cetera. And the mantra really is, let's build a bucket that's so big that, it can handle all the water that can be poured into it. And if at the end of the day we've built it and there's still about this much left, that's okay.
Nice.
I'll take the blame for that, because I'd rather be in that position than in the other position of just not being able to provide product to great customers like Whole Foods and Walmart and all that. They don't like it when you can't supply.
One of your investors or investments was from Tyson Foods, right? Was that just an investment, or are they helping with consultancy, scaling up, that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, they've been great. I mean,
because I remember at one point you said it was investment only.
Right.
Is that still true?
I mean, in a formal sense, yes. But just as as when I think a group of constructive, productive people get together and we set aside any differences we might have, and say, okay, what's our common goal? Our common goal is to feed 7 billion plus sustainably protein. How do you do that? We start to work together, and they have so many great research and development resources. I mean, if you've ever been to Springdale, their research and development center is pretty impressive. And so it's very tempting to collaborate, and we do. But there's no formal relationship between the company other than investment.
Mm-hmm. Besides the the aims you've got to impact the planet more environmentally and stuff like that? What are like the financial goals? What kind of market are you going to try and take over?
Right.
Because often people ask you that, and then you say, "Oh, I'm more concentrating on like the environment and ethical issues." But actually, I want to flip the question.
Yeah, no, sure. No, I mean, I'm definitely aggressive. Like I will always favor market share over price. I'll always I've learned this from someone who did this well, that you have to surround yourself with people who are going to negotiate on pricing, because I certainly can't, because I just sort of salivate at greater market share. And greater market share, greater impact, et cetera, greater impact. So yeah, I mean, I want to be on every plate, and our marketing reflects that. In fact, like if we would get a lot of pressure from more traditional marketers that would say, well, look, the CEO of the household is the mom, which is true. Even with the changing workforce, more women entering the workforce, et cetera, still the decision maker more times than not is going to be the female head of the household in traditional families. And so we have to be very cognizant of that as we market, but you can't forget the rest of the family. Dad's got to get on board, the kids have to get on board. So how do you arm mom with the tools she needs? And we do that by focusing on athletes, because we believe that their use of the product is so genuine and authentic, because they're using it for all kinds of reasons. They want to keep the light frame. They're worried about inflammation in their joints, all the things that our products can help them do. So it's very organic for them to use the product. They get excited about our company, and who's better than an athlete to be our advocate? They're fit, they're healthy, they're often doing great things and accomplishing great things that require a really healthy body. So we rely on them to market, and that's about capturing that whole table.
Mm-hmm. Somebody asked me yesterday, who are you going to see at Beyond Meat? I said Ethan Brown. They said, oh, he's I said, he's an animal rights activist working within capitalism. Do you hate me for that, or what's your take on that statement?
I know, it's fine. I mean, it's
that was a joke, by the way, but I just want to explore like the concept of like, you're basically trying to make the world a better place, but you're doing it within the capitalist model, right? Is that how you see things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do. I think I don't have a tremendous amount of faith in the government. I think our system is overwhelmed and kind of broken.
I presume they haven't given you any support.
No. Well, I mean, the states have. I mean, the state governments have. Like, we've gotten some grants for university work with the University of Maryland, and I've certainly benefited a tremendous amount from the great public universities we have here. And I've said this before. Like, I'm always amazed at how little people mine universities for great inventions and technologies, because they have all these professors that are just paid to tinker and teach and think, and they come up with these amazing things, and yet they're not able to commercialize them. And so that's where entrepreneurs come in. And so I have benefited from state governments and from universities, but the federal government is more of a nuisance than not.
Does it sort of intimidate you how much subsidies they give out to the animal agricultural industry? And you're basically, you haven't got any of that, and you're trying to price match them, right?
I think it's more annoying than intimidating, in the sense that this is between us and the consumer. Consumer's leading this, and we're trying to respond. Like the consumer saying, I want this to work. And we're saying, okay, well, we're going to try to spend enough. We're going to try to get the brightest people. We're going to try to be intense and focused enough to create a piece of meat year after year, to improve it year after year, so that you can have a delicious burger, have a delicious hot dog, etc., without having come from an animal. And so that's between the consumer and the company. The government, federal government, can distort that with subsidies and other things. But thus far, it's really been just about the consumer and ourselves.
How do you see the price drop going? What's the trajectory of that? At the moment, it's what, $12 in, say, Veggie Grill?
Yeah, no, that's Veggie Grill's a great customer, but that's on them. I eat it. I mean, my son, it's his favorite restaurant by far.
Is it too much though to what you want it to be?
Within the context of their pricing, that makes sense, and they're doing great. They got lines out the door. It's an amazing place and great food. It's an incredible success story.
But I mean, if you guys had help from like the federal government, right?
Oh, well, so I think that where pricing is really interesting for us is if you go to the meat case itself, we're still higher than even grass-fed beef, and that's an issue we have to address, and it'll come because you know this math very well, but if you're starting with the same material, which is plants in a field, and you're running them through our system versus running through an animal, it's so much more efficient. You use less material, less time, etc. So why are we more expensive? It doesn't make any sense, and the only answer to that is scale. We just don't have the scale yet, and the supply chain doesn't have the scale yet. All of these. So the pulse market has exploded. There's a lot more pulses coming on as crops, but the separation facilities are now needing to come on quicker, be able to handle more capacity. And so as they come on quicker and there's more competition in the separation facilities where they're separating protein from fiber, and we can use that protein, prices will start going down.
Let's talk about your products. Are you just going to be in the US, or I heard you expanding?
Yeah.
Seth Goldman told us last year they're expanding to the UK.
Yeah. So we got a great initiative there. So Seth is leading the kind of strategy internationally on sales and working with Chuck Muth, who's our chief growth officer, and Ehab, who we just brought on as an international sales guy.
Can you tell us anything exclusive about where you're planning to launch? What's going on with that?
I think it's. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff coming. We're going to be in the EU this year, in certain countries.
Where?
I can't say, not because I don't want to tell you. It's just that we're still working out the details.
Seth said the UK. Is that still one?
UK, absolutely. Yeah, that one I can talk about.
Who are you in talks with?
Well, Tesco.
Tesco just released a new plant-based lines.
They're great. Wicked healthy.
Yeah, you got it, man.
I love that.
Have you met him?
Oh, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
The company that I mentioned, Good Catch, is his brother.
Yes.
Yes. You should talk to them.
Yeah. I'm actually friends with them.
Yeah.
They collaborate with the Good Food Institute quite a lot, don't they?
Yeah.
And I heard recently you're working with them.
Yeah. And I think PHW in Germany invested in Good Catch as well. So that's really neat. It's a big poultry company. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're going to Australia and a bunch of other places. But as those deals are still being worked out, I don't have exact.
Yeah, sure. What other countries on the horizon at the moment? I
think until the deals are totally done, I shouldn't mention them. But we are in Hong Kong, for example, which is well known. I mean, we are aggressive. We'll be in more places than not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, that's not true globally, but our efforts are to be everywhere we can be.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about the process of trying to get it into fast food stores?
Yeah.
Is that a big headache for you?
It's fun. Yeah. I mean, because such a high impact outcome.
Right. You approach McDonald's?
We're talking to all of them for sure. I mean, we have NDAs and things, so I can't go into it. But one of them is going to break. I mean, for sure. And there's a lot of enthusiasm within that space to do this. It's just a question of how to do it in a way that's going to appeal to the most number of consumers. But yeah, they get it. They see it coming.
Mm-hmm. Have you got a whole team of people liaising with those kind of companies?
We have a pretty big effort, yeah, pretty big effort, as does anyone in the space. I mean, I don't think ours is particularly different from anyone else in the space.
Do you think companies like you influence, say, the McVegan in Finland?
No, I think that's the consumer. And I'm super excited to see that, that. Have you had it?
I haven't. No, I want to go there and try it.
Yeah, I'd like to try it.
Yeah.
That's the dream, is to be able to go to McDonald's and just have a complete plant-based version of what they do. I mean, I've always said this, that McDonald's, is never going to be known for salads, at least in our lifetime. And so why not stick to your guns and make what you're great at, make burgers, and just make them from plants.
So can you tell me about the split between vegan and omnivore? Who's buying your products?
Right. We don't have great statistical information on that. We do know from exit interviews with people as they leave the meat case that we've done on spot basis, that we think about 70% of them that are buying the product are meat eaters. And that's all about placement. They go, they see it, they're like, why not? I try it, they like it, they come back and more.
How have you given your product such a kind of mainstream appeal? I guess would be the next question to follow on from that.
It's two things. It's taste. I mean, taste is king. Just make it taste great. Make sure the nutritionals are solid. You could make something taste great and have it be totally unhealthy for people, and I think you betray their trust that way. So let's make it taste great. Let's make sure it is healthier for them, which we're very clear on. And then let's speak to them in a way that, I think it's a bad idea to build a business telling people not to do what they love. It's a great idea to build a business saying that, look, we're going to enable you to eat what you love, but it's going to be better for you and better for the earth. And that's how we build our business. We talk about, in fact, I think we trademarked eat what you love. Like, we believe that. We believe what we're doing. My son has more rather than less burger occasions because he has our burger. He sometimes have 5 or 6 a week. Mm-hmm. I would never let him do that with 80-20, but I do let him do it in this case because I know it's healthy for him.
Mm-hmm. I guess a big thing as well is being in the meat aisle. Do you think people look back at that and see that as a really historic, was it 2017? I think that was
16.
16
yeah. Whole
Foods. Are people going to look back at that and think that was really historic?
I hope. The guy who we really are indebted to for that is a guy named Tom Rich at Whole Foods. And he just, like, a lot of people said no, they didn't want to do it. And he was a VP in the Colorado area. So I'll do it. And he did it and was transformational. I think we've been fair to them in the sense that sales have been great. It's a great partnership. Whole Foods is a huge part of our story. Like, we wouldn't be here without Whole Foods. They helped us at every turn. Even when we were just working with universities in 2009, they were there helping.
Mm-hmm. You said your kids are 12 and 13. I think you told Jane Velez-Mitchell that by the time they can drive, you want your products to be in fast food chains. Is that still one, do you reckon?
Yeah, McDonald's, yeah. Absolutely. And so I'm running out of time. But it'll happen, I guarantee it. I feel we're that close. I don't have any reason to feel that way there's no communication from them that says, hey, we're going to do this. But I just feel the consumer is, for all the reasons that you're so well aware of, health, climate, natural resources, animal welfare.
Can you just in a couple of sound bites go through the benefits of your products?
Sure.
Not to cut you off, but
no, it's fine.
Just for the people that aren't familiar, right?
Yeah. No, I think the way I think about it is the consumer is being bombarded every day almost now with one piece of information or another about the consumption of animal protein. And, you look at human health and, the heart disease, diabetes, cancer. I think that World Health Organization set a good sort of summary of the issues. And then, every 6 months, USC or some university comes out with something. NIH comes out with a study about the levels of meat we eat and the type of meat we eat and the issues around, whether it be colon cancer, heart disease, whatever. So there's that. The consumer hears that. And then the consumer hears about climate change. And I think more and more people are becoming aware that livestock is the single most important driver in greenhouse gas emissions. They look at natural resources. We have drought issues here in California, but yet there's a lot of that a lot of the water we have goes to animal agriculture or agriculture in general, but animals are certainly a big part of that. And then you look at, animal welfare. And the thing you're holding in your hand, I think, has probably done more for animal welfare than anything. The ability for kids to see on their phone how their food is being made and how the animals are being treated during that process. And many are raising their hands and say, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I know I see that in my own kids. They certainly, they listen to me because I'm their dad. That's the stuff that moves them.
Sure.
And so we have this tremendous push from millennials who are saying, I want to opt out of that system. I want more transparency. I'm open to the idea that meat can come from plants because I'm open to the fact that taxis aren't as good as Uber. I'm open to the fact that phones don't need landlines. Open to all these things that change, that someday YouTube may take over cable, things like that. So what we're doing is not so strange to that generation. And you have people who are 40 and older who doctors are saying, your cholesterol, you got to watch that. Heart disease is in your family. Here's the things you can do. Maybe they have a cancer scare, things like that. So it's all these factors are pushing this movement in a way, and we, by trying to provide products that are truly satiating, we're benefiting from that.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly on the PR before we end, you're in South Park recently. How much of that was your doing?
None
at all.
I appreciate you asking that.
Yeah.
I love that segment. I love it because one, it's funny. That was amazing. That was incredible.
Dr. Oz, how much of that was him or you, or a little bit both?
I don't know about that. That was probably more an orchestrated thing, the South Park thing was amazing. And the other thing that's been amazing and really fantastic is Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, if you look, basketball player. If you look at his press conferences and things like that, or him getting on and off the plane or bus, he's often wearing one of our hats. And that's really gratifying to me because, I believe so strongly the product is the right product for people who are really physically active. And I remember, when I was younger looking at the Got Milk campaign and seeing the milk mustache, and I think I might have told you this before, but we hired the architect of that campaign. And I said, I would really like you to build the same thing for my company, because I believe that in our case, it's really true. That if you feed this to your kids are going to grow up and be really healthy. They're going to be fit. They're going to have the right juice going into their body to be really vital human beings. And so we worked together on this. We started a thing called the Future Protein, which he came up with, which I think is brilliant. And then we sort of differed on exactly how to execute it. But the main idea is let's
give it a mainstream appeal, right?
Yeah, and let's tell the truth about it. Like, there's no marketing jazz and that stuff. I mean, you have our products, you're going to feel good, you're going to be lighter. You can go for a run right after your burger. You're not going to have a pit in your stomach. So let's go tell that story.
Mm-hmm. You've gone to events like Veg Fest, and do you seem to be open to working with the animal rights community a little bit in that sense? You obviously made that decision a few years ago. It's probably quite a natural one, right? Were you worried in the back of your head, though, that would be a bad thing for the marketing of your product?
I think it's something that people...
because veganism and animal rights and animal welfare is associated with some kind of vibe and a feel that you're not really going for, sure. Right? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think you have to... I mean, the difference is that I'm very willing to... people I respect the most, my dad is visiting here, for example. I mean, he eats meat, I just couldn't say enough great things about him. People are at a different point in their journey.
Sure.
People have a different relationship with this subject than I do, and I just have to be cognizant of that and respect that.
But I mean, the specific question was about your decision to be open to going to things like
right.
Veg Fest.
Right.
Right, and obviously the marketing of your products is really important. I'm just trying to get a feel of that decision to be, because you look at your competition, for example, they're less open to that kind of community. And I would have said 3-4 years ago, or maybe it's a little bit risky, right? But you've made that decision. It seems to be paying off, because everyone seems to love your product. Whether it's the vegans, the veggies, the omnivores.
Dave Chappelle, the comedian. So he's a hilarious comedian. He sort of gets away with what he does because he insults everybody. He's one of those guys who can do it. And I think the way that we approach that question of animal rights is something that I care about. But after I see you today, I'm going to see someone who runs one of the largest beef slaughterhouses in the country. I have a great comfort level with both sides of the argument, right? And not in terms of I believe in the merits of one side of it, but I certainly have an understanding of the other. And I think I've mentioned it before, I grew up in Washington, D.C. and in College Park, Maryland. But we had a farm that was supposed to be a place to go recreate, and it ended up becoming a business for my dad, a Holstein dairy business. So I spent a lot of time there, and I still go there today. It's no longer a dairy business, but neighbors there raise beef, and I just view it differently. But, thank God for, kids and sports and, politics. You can talk about other things. You don't have to talk about the one area where you have differences. And so I have to be true to myself, and I do care about the issue of animal rights. But I also care about those people feeling respected and able to live the lives that they want to live in.
Last question. Biggest challenge doing what you do, and any closing remarks?
Right. The biggest challenge is dealing with impatience, basically, I think our own, in the sense that, we want this to be better than it is. And I think we want that pretty badly. But there's steps you have to take to get there. And so, you put out the best you can do every year, and then you try to make it better. And, that it can be frustrating the amount of time that takes. And so I find that challenging, to have to wait. To have to say, okay, well, we're going to take another 6 months of this, because I just feel like every inch of improvement you make, you go a mile in terms of the number of consumers that will come into your brand, because they want this to work. There's that latent demand. Consumers want to eat meat, but they don't want all the bad stuff that goes along with it. So that I think it would be the biggest challenge. The other one is capacity. Just trying to predict the levels of demand and keep up with it is it's a good problem to have, but that's been hard. Like last summer, we didn't have enough capacity, and that was really challenging for us.
Great. Well, thank you so much for
Sure.
doing this. I really appreciate it.